I'm excited for this shit, dude! Bro, you have no idea. This opening is not supposed to make you excited. It's supposed to blow your entire head off. Here, let me tell you why. The scene opens with the protagonist alone walking toward the benches. I'm not sure of the exact location, but at first glance, I thought it was the rooftop of the school. But since you can see the bridge from the lower angle, it is somewhere else. The arrangement of the seats and fences does make it look like the final scene on the roof of the original though. What is important here is that the main character entered the scene alone, which signifies the beginning of his story before he met everyone. There is quite a bit to talk about here with the MP3 players, apart from its being in the shape of the bullet, which is cute. The first song you see is Burn My Dread, which is the same song that the protagonist was listening to in the original on his arrival at the Iwatodai station. To be exact, the remix version called Burn My Dread The Final Battle was played. It is interesting that the same song played during the final battle against Nyx, creating a poetic link between his arrival in Iwatodai and his final moment in the game.
There's nothing we can do?
Don't give up. We have to believe in him.
Give him strength! Take my life if you must!
Back to the trailer, the narrative is quite similar, using the song to symbolize the passage of time. As I mentioned earlier, the first song is Burn My Dread, signifying the beginning and a nod to the original. And the next song is Want to Be Close, which is a song being played during the school life, where you meet not only just the main cast, but every social link the player chooses to do as well. And finally, Full Moon Full Light was picked, which is a big nod at the full moon operation. If you are a Persona fan who happens to play another game that is not Persona 5, you should already be familiar with the meaning of the butterfly. In Japanese culture, butterflies are associated with deceased spirits and are believed to guide individuals into the afterlife, which makes a lot of sense here as the main theme of Persona 3 is death. However, it's not just about dying, it's about our relationship with it. And in Persona 3, more than often, it is in death that we find meaning in life. With that, the butterfly is also a callback to Philemon, a character that dates all the way back to the first game. Furthermore, I'd like you to pay attention to the blue color of the butterflies, and while not always, many times it will be used as a proxy symbol for the butterfly going forward. Additionally, I'd like to plant a little interesting detail here that apart from spiritual association, butterflies are also known to be creatures of dream world, but more about this later. The scene of the two people gossiping is a foreshadow of the existence of cult members who are calling upon Nyx to bring about the fall of humanity.
Look at the moon! It's glorious!
Just as the prophecy foretold!
The end of the world! It's really here! Everything they said was true!
The color blue here reflects the spiritual belief of the cult toward the death and the callback to the butterfly. Just like the blue color of the butterfly, the red color seen on the stoplight here will be reused throughout the animation. Although the red color does not have one set meaning, the animator often uses it to link the past trauma and product created from the shadow experiment conducted by the Kirijo group. As the twin transforms, the red light disappears, and the whole scene is filled with shade of blue. What looked like to be one lone crow has been seen on top of the traffic light. There are superstitions around the world that associate crow with death itself. When a murder of crows perches on the fences of your house, it is believed that you're about to die, and the crows come to escort your soul. Murder, if you did not know because you're ESL like me, is what they call a group of crows. Interestingly, while the saying mentioned a murder of crows, it is much more fitting here to have a lone crow to create a direct parallel to Feroz, who is a death arcana who wakes to guide the protagonist and humanity's soul to the other side.
No one can escape time. It delivers us all to the same end. You can't plug your ears and cover your eyes. And so it begins.
However, you can save the ladders depending on the life you choose to live. But that's not all. Now that I have told you about the symbolism and story of the crow, I can tell you more about how great this opening is. If we rewind all the way back to the two cultists, we can see that the blue pens on their faces is smears in the shape of a crow wing, which is extremely similar to those of a Nyx avatar. This indicates that instead of being guided by the butterfly, they are guided by the crow, or in this case, Nyx. Moving on, we saw a student from Gekkoukan High School leaping to her death, possibly believed it was the only salvation. The red of her ribbons and the school logo are highlighted here, as Gekkoukan was built as a cover-up by the Kirijo groups on the top of the Shadow Experiment Lab. Finally, we saw a transition in green, signifying the dark hours, as the sky during the dark hours is often depicted in this very shade of greens. And of course, the color of the coffin here has to be red, as it is a direct result of the dark hours and the product of the shadow experiments.
Crazy how time flies when I wonder if the path is in the right direction. But I do believe things come to light by accident.
Yukari is mostly covered in a shade of pink. Here is a callback to her social link, where she told the protagonist that her favorite color is pink and her favorite flower is a pink gerbera. We can see that her reflection in the mirror is that of a happy person, but when the camera moved out to the water-filled sink, we saw a frown on her face. The lip gloss that was pink in the mirror appeared to be bright red colors in the small pool of waters, foreshadow the development of her complicated feeling resulting from her father's past action and the growing fracture between her and her mother. And the smile and makeup she put on her face is nothing more than just a cover-up. The pool of water in the sink could also symbolize the depth of the past events. Similar symbolism is being used with the protagonist, who is sinking deeper as he rediscovers the past event of himself and the Tatsumi Port Islands. In one of the earlier trailers, we witnessed a memorable scene where the symbolism is employed. We observe what appear to be the remnants of the Shadow Experiment Lab submerged under waters. Alongside it, the record of Yukari fathers displayed on monitors gradually ascend to the surface, destined to be uncovered. Next, Junpei appeared in a gloomy state, covered in shadow or a shade of gray, against a white and bright background. However, when he saw the player show up, he put on a happy and welcoming face. Interestingly, if we rewind back a couple of frames, we can see that he is somewhere between daydreamings and deep thoughts. This is a heavy hint to his story, as Junpei's story is about how directionless he is and how he is in need of finding a purpose in life. Junpei names, which mean to obey, be obedient, and be flat, heavily contrasts with the meaning of his magician arcana, which imply that there is a great potential within him waiting to be discovered. In fact, in one of the trailers, we can hear him speak out about this.
Come on!
Why do you try to fight when you know it's hopeless?
In fact, I don't even really have a good reason to live.
For me, or you, or anyone, just simply existing gives our lives meaning.
And of course, the blue on his shirts and eyes link back to how Junpei was born inside the Shadow Experiment Lab. Just kidding, it's just his color theme, just like we saw with Yukari and later on with most of the other characters. We can again see the green shades suggesting the arrival of the dark hours. The broken window behind him could suggest a relationship with his alcoholic father, resulting in him being brought up in a broken home. However, it is more likely the aftermath of the battle Cease had against Strega, resulting in Junpei's own death, or Chidori. Technically, they both die, but one was brought back to life. One piece of evidence that suggests this is a giant pole that seemed to be the very same one during the set events. By the way, once again, we had the red logo of the school, and if the pool of blood is Chidori's, it would make a lot of sense because the artificial persona user was created by the Kirijo groups. Now, we have the shot of Mitsuru, whose hair, lips, and ribbons are red, as she is the leader of Cease and who led the operation to end the dark hours. But what is even more interesting here is that her eyes are blue, and trust me, that's not her eye color in the game. The connection could be attributed to the passage of blue and water symbolism throughout the multiple trailers. While Mitsuru is leading Cease, she is the only one on the team who has some knowledge of the past sin that was created by the Kirijo group. Moreover, you can see her serious face as she speeds forwards on her motorcycle to make what was once wrong right again.
By accident, when he remains on, sounds like it's meant to be.
This is my favorite part of the opening, and there is a lot to unpack, so listen up. We have Akihiko in his red sweater looking at Shinjiro, and when the camera rotated around, we saw Shinjiro, who was looking away, not able to have direct eyes contact with Ken's. This depicted the tension between the two perfectly. However, even from behind, we're able to see that Ken is stared directly at Shinjiro, which is amazing tribute to his story, that at one point, Ken's once and only reason for life was to exact revenge on Shinjiro. But the camera does not stop there. It's rotated around once more, revealing that Shinjiro has vanished and Akihiko has taken his place in the exact same spot. This clever camera play showcases Shinjiro fades and the continuation of the Ken story, where Ken loses his reason to live after Shinjiro is gone and Akihiko confront him, picking him back up.
No, Senpai!
It's all right. Give yourself time. Let your anger be your strength. Come on, kid. You're just a kid. You've got your whole life ahead of you, so don't waste it. Make it your own. Okay?
But I...
Aki, take care of him.
But if you've been watching my video before, you might have realized by now that one of my favorite phrases is, "That's not all." And yes, that's not all. Because this is a great link to Akihiko and Shinjiro personas as well. Akihiko's first persona, Polydeuces, also known as Pollux, is a twin brother to Castor, which is Shinjiro persona. Even without me mentioning it, I'm certain that a few of you are curious as to why the two personas resemble one another. Anyway, the interesting part here is that while Polydeuces is immortal, Castor is not, and while that's alone is already a great foreshadow of the fate of Shinjiro, it's even cooler that the story goes on that Polydeus asks Zeus to share his immortality with his brother so that they can be together. Zeus then grants their wish and transforms them into the constellation Gemini. Additionally, the original Akihiko Akana, which was Emperor, was changed to Star in the newer version. Okay, what I am trying to tell you is that at the beginning of the scene, they show Akihiko with Shinjiro together, and later, Akihiko was the only one left with Ken. This is pretty much a wonderful micro-retelling of the story of their personas. Despite not being immortalized, Shinjiro memories and wishes continue to live on inside Ken and Akihiko, the latter being the member of the Star Arcana, which is truly wonderful.
I've made up my mind. Shinjiro-san, I'll see it through to the end.
Sounds like it's meant to be.
Next, we see the protagonist using the Evoker summoning Orpheus. This little scene that lasts only 5 seconds is one of the best scenes I've ever seen in Symbolism in my entire life. That's why I'm going to skip it for now, but don't worry, everything else is still amazing, or even better, depending on your personal taste. And the shot cut to the Velvet Room, revealing the contract the protagonist signed for Pharos at the beginning of the game.
Now if you want to proceed, please sign your name there. It's a contract. Don't worry. All it says is that you'll accept full responsibility for your actions. You know, the usual stuff.
Which Igor, who is the master of the Velvet Room, gladly accepted and welcomed the players to the Velvet Rooms. Now, it's time for a quick callback. At the beginning of the video, I told you that in Japan, a butterfly is a creature of the dream world that can be associated with death and spirits. Well, here's the cool part. One of Igor's most memorable quotes from the Persona series is,
This place exists between dream and reality, mind and matter.
But that's not all, because remember how most of the protagonists was summoned into the Velvet Rooms. That's right, it was when they are dreaming. Or just walking to random blue door located all over the city, but let's forget that was a thing for now. Okay, So the butterfly shown in Persona 3 elegantly tied the story of the games with the story of the butterfly I told you about nicely. Also, don't forget its blue tone resembling that of the Velvet Rooms. Furthermore, this red flower is known as the Hikenbana, or the red spider lily. People often associate this flower with death and sometimes give it as a symbol of a final goodbye and a gift to someone or soul about to embark on the death and rebirth cycle. And isn't it just beautiful to show this flower transforming into the key of the Velvet Rooms being gifted to the protagonist who signed the contract with pretty much death itself. Next, we got the main cast summoning their persona with a blue background. This part of the song is a pure banger, but to avoid a copyright strike, I need to pause and discuss it briefly. Apart from the red of the C's armbands, which I already told you about, while I don't think it's on purpose, the scene in which Fuga shot herself show great resemblance to the meme, don't trust anyone, not even yourself. If this is actually on purpose by whoever is directing this intro, then I applaud you because you're a very cultured human being. In one scene, we see Koromaru, who is a loyal dog, who guards the shrine where his previous master rests. On the other hand, Fuga stands alone on the school roof, possibly foreshadowing her story of an inferior complex and frequent bullying at school. Additionally, the name Fugas mean the wind, gust, flower, and blossom, so it is fitting to show her with the windmill in the background. Both characters, while currently alone, will eventually join Sis and find out what does it mean to live. Here, we can see Feroz uncovering the camera, allowing us, the player, to see that Ikusugi is watching over the citizens of Iwatodai Domes. And I'm not sure if the creator is conscious of what room's camera to have in the front center, but the one that was showcased seemed to be that of Junpei's room, which is okay. This part of the opening has a lot of symbolism and simile play, and it is also the other part that I really like. Here, we saw the protagonist sinking down toward the bottom of the whole events of Persona 3. The moon later revealed in the game to be Nyx, and Thanatos screaming were both observed. The way the protagonist looked over the moon here is reminiscent of the final fight in the original. Now, we saw the moon mimicking the shape of the eyes, which by the way, is what Nyx's body looked like in the story. It's a giant eye that became the moon.
The moon. What is that?
Then shed a bloody tears, creating a pool of blood. And we saw the reflection of Ryoji. This scene directly parallels the moments in the story when Nyx's sight separates from its body to roam the earth. Afterwards, the narrative transitioned to the aftermath of the past encounter on the Moonlight Bridge between Death, who had escaped from Kirijo Lab, and Aegis, whose hair was rendered in bright red. With insufficient power to defeat Death, which had fragmented into 13 shadows, representing by the Akana surrounding her, Aegis was forced to seal the weakened Death Akana within a boy body who was the sole survivor of his family found nearby. The boy is presented here as the full cards. And yeah, that boy is you, but you should know that already. The scene then transitioned to Aegis' eye, which is of a sphere shape, just like the formation of the cards. The glow in her eyes is also mimicking that of a clock hands. This is quite obvious, but if you did not know, the Akana card was based on a tarot cards, and they actually come in pairs with a number. With that said, the way the Akanas are laid out is a direct reflection of the story orders and the strong shadow the protagonist must face. Start with number 1, the Magician, and finally number 12, the Hangman. But wait, that's only 12 numbers, but 13 shadows, right? That's right, number 13 is a number that belongs to Death Arcana, and while it's not on the clock, it is in the game. And you might be more familiar with it if I use the name Dark Hours, which is an hour that serves as the 25th hours hidden between one day and the next. This entire movement of the clock hands is also directly parallel to that the classic full journey of the tarot cards. Finally, we see Ike is closing her eyes and partially losing some of her memories due to the damaged circus. This is again linked to the scene before where the eyes of Nyx is closed, as both of them are now lying dormant, waiting for the day that they will wake up again. And of course, we have the classic scene of characters crossing paths and staring at the player, telling them that they are going to have good times. And finally, the scene zoom out, showing the protagonist, who is no longer alone, as he's had the entire group of friends right behind him. But we're not done yet, because we still have that one scene to discuss. To start, let me remind you what is the function of the Evokers. The Evoker is a gun-like item that functions as a summoning medium for members of Cs to invoke and control their personas. Using the Evoker proved to be traumatizing for the user, as it resembles the act of CS. Not sure if I can say the actual words on YouTube here, so CS it is. Anyway, the Evoker serves as a symbol of death, accepting death, and one mortalities. The contrast between Yukari, who is afraid of death, and the protagonist, who does not view death as something to fear, can also be seen early on during the protagonist's first awakenings.
Those monsters. We call them shadows.
Go on.
Now, pay attention to what happened when the protagonist is using the Evoker in these scenes. The splash patterns convincingly mimic that of a butterfly wing shapes. Additionally, there is another meaning to that of a butterfly that is important to the games. In many cultures, butterflies often symbolize transformation, so let's add it to the mix. Now, if we put everything together, we can say that the butterfly is guiding the protagonist through a transformation cycle of birth, death, and eventually rebirth. However, in case of the protagonist, the butterfly is not the only creature that is guiding him. That's right, we can see that the butterfly wing patterns now transform into a shape of a crow wing, symbolizing the joint effort between the velvet rooms and death in guiding the protagonist through his journey. What is interesting here is that many people who are not into tarot reading usually misinterpret the meaning of the death cards. The death cards in tarot symbolizes transformation, not the literal physical death of a person. Upright, it signifies the end of a phase, urging renewal and embracing unforeseen opportunities. However, while Feroz and Ryuji represent the upright death arcana, Nyx at the end of the game represented an upside down one that represents resistance to change, clinging to the past, or fear of transformation. To sum it up, Nyx is summoned to remove the entire life cycle from the planet, stopping a newer generation from replacing older ones, and bring true stillness to the universe. That's more like it. So I don't usually ask viewers to do anything at the end of my video, but this video took a lot of research and editing time to create. So if you know anyone who's loved this kind of content, please send them this video. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, there are many more like it on my channel, so feel free to check them out. But before you leave, I have one question I'd like to leave you with, and that is, do you think an alien can dream? And what about a robot? And if so, what are they dreaming about? Thanks for watching, and see you next time.